my luck, a guy who's better looking and better dressed. Like two guys. I want to go home and get a suit.
Yeah, I thought what we'll do is we'll keep this brief. I also want to open it up to questions from the audience and let them also ask each other the kind of questions they'd like. But, you know, I thought it would be great if we could start by each of you telling us what you find exciting about the new projects you're going to be doing with Virgin. And, you know, Stan, particularly, why are you excited to come back to the world of comic books? And what's going to be exciting about this new medium that you're going to tackle?
I don't feel I ever left the world of comic books, really. But the idea of coming to Virgin and working with new artists on new projects, things that haven't been done before. It's like the early days of Marvel, just dreaming up something brand new and hope that a tough audience like you will give it a chance. It's exciting, and I can't wait to get started. Of course, to have to compete with somebody like this, maybe I wouldn't have been so eager if I had known.
Now, Grant, you're reimagining a 10,000-year-old Indian myth, and in the most modern kind of technology possible, short-form motion capture animation. So maybe you can tell the audience a little bit about why that excites you and what that story is really about.
Well, obviously it's one of the very oldest stories on the planet. It's about a family who go to war. It's the last war of an age, and it also affects everything about the world we live in today. So it's a really interesting story, especially now. The world we live in is obsessed with war, so we want to go back to what was one of the very biggest battle stories in human history. And the idea of taking it and doing it as little 4-minute shorts that appear on cell phones just seemed a really great modern way to adapt a really ancient story, to recreate it for a new audience, and also to update things, to make it look a bit different, to tie it into kind of feelings that we're all having in the world today, and to tie it into things that are happening in the world today. So it's been a great opportunity for me, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more of it, because it looked bloody great on that thing.
In case you're wondering what this is, you've seen the United Nations where they put things in their ear to get the translation.
Still isn't working. So it kind of comes out like this instead.
You know, one of the things I was curious about is this has been the summer of comic book movies. We've probably never seen as much of a wave, whether it be the Hellboys and Wannets and the Iron Mans and Hulks, and, you know, obviously recently Batman. Why do we think, or why do you guys think that all of a sudden film has really caught on to the medium of comic books? And, you know, more importantly, you know, as two masters of the medium, what is the real, is it fair to say comic books are a storyboard, or what are the real differences that we look at as creators between comic books and films?
I like the way he asks a question and answers it. Yeah, comic books are storyboards for movies. There, see, there's nothing left for you to say now. I have to try to hold my own against these two guys. Sure, but it isn't that sudden if you think about it. It probably started with the original Superman movie. When was that? 20 years ago? Something like that. Those dates. And it's just that now, with all the special effects that they can do, and the fact that they are now taking these things seriously, so they get the best screenwriters and the best directors and quality actors. And this is not a flash in the pan. I think these kind of movies, I'm happy to say, are going to be with us for a long time.
Comics do things a lot differently from movies this time. I think the way we write comics is very different from the way they do movies.
I like the way he says the way we write comics. You're trying to get out of my bandwagon. No. Yeah, the fact is, this guy is he's one of the great comic book writers of all time, and I don't have to tell you. Not only great at one type, but this guy writes everything, all types of stories. And I think it's the accent has something to do with it. But I'm hoping to learn from him, and that's the reason I'm here. And but like I said, what's happened is today the finest writers in the country, people who write great television series and movies, they're all getting into comics because they know that comics are the, I'll say a phrase you like, comics are the springboard to greatness.
You know, one of the things I find interesting is both of you as writers had very different eras in the comic book world.
You mean eras? An era? Grant and I made no errors. I just want to make that clear.
And, you know, particularly, Sam, when you were working with the artist, you know, that founded the Marvel Universe, it was in the Marvel method, where you were essentially creating stories and sculpting them from clay. And I'd love for you to talk a bit about that. And Grant, you know, obviously you work in a more production-oriented method, where you write a script, send it to the artist. And what do you like or dislike about that process versus, you know, potentially the Marvel method?
You go first so that I can sound clever by topping you when I go.
Well, I've done some stories in the Marvel method as well. The Marvel method's quite fun because you don't have to do as much work. But fortunately, you've got a really good artist that can help, you know. In cases I've worked with guys like Kirby or Ditko, so you know, I had to make up my own stories in a lot of ways as well. I don't know, I think the Marvel method it's fun, it's a lot more collaborative. The other method kind of involves sitting writing a full script, which can be a bit boring sometimes. It's quite nice to work off someone else's artwork, but that doesn't happen so much now. I think Marvel's a lot more set up in the day for that to work. That kind of, the band aspect, everyone playing together.
Well, you know, the thing is, we started the Marvel art methed, and I don't know why we don't call it the Stan Lee method. I have to talk to the guys about that. And I started that because I didn't have time to write the scripts. In those days, I was writing so many different stories, and as you know, our artists were freelancers. That meant they only got paid for what they did. They didn't get a salary. So if they had nothing to draw, they weren't getting paid. So let's say I was doing a story for Jack Kirby, and Steve Ditko had nothing to do. So he was waiting for a story for him to do, but I was doing Kirby's. So it occurred to me, look, Steve, you're good at story. Let me just tell you roughly what I want. You go ahead and draw it any way you want to. And when you bring in the artwork, I'll put in the dialogue. So in that way, Steve went home and drew. I was still writing for Jack, so I was keeping both of them busy at the same time. Then Gene Colan came in, and Ramita, and so forth. And I say to all of them, here's the idea. You write it, draw it any old way you want. Don't worry, I'll fix it up with my dialogue. And I was keeping everybody busy, and I realized not only is this an efficient way to work, to keep a lot of guys busy at once, we got better stories, and this is the reason. The artists in this business who are really good, they are storytellers themselves, but they work with pictures. So instead of a writer saying, do a close-up in this panel and a long shot here, if you leave it to the artist, the chances are he or she will think of a better way to do it. So when the artwork came back to me, it was the best that they could do. And it kind of inspired me, and I wrote the best that I could write, looking at that. And the publisher got the best, and the readers got the best, and the whole world got the best, and it was all because of my style, and why did I get a medal? Teach him to wear a suit.
You did some books in that kind of a style?
Well, I do that half and half, because what I do is I tend to do almost a full script, send it to the artist, and then they mess it around a little bit, so then I have to go back in and redo the dialogue, so it's kind of, it's not like a kind of bastard child of this.
You redid the dialogue? Your own dialogue?
Yeah. Usually when the art comes back in, I'll just redo the entire thing if the art.
I never redid any. I am my biggest fan. I would read what I wrote. Wow, is that great?
I wish I could be like you.
I got a
I
teacher.
wish I could be.
I want you to gain more confidence.
It's too late. Now, I look at myself, every time you see the ones that are published, and I say, this is terrible, and when the train goes out, I rewrite the entire thing again. I just rewrite all the time.
I feel like I'm in another world.
You are? Read the air.
All right, it's up to you to set this thing back on track.
Did you ever go, even in the early days, when you were doing the timely stuff, did you ever do full scripts? No,
my scripts were magnificent.
Oh, I know they were. Did you ever do them full?
Did I ever do them?
The full scripts, man.
Oh, the full script. Oh, I always did the full. I started writing in about 1940. And until 1960-something, I was always doing full scripts, all the westerns and romance and everything, and horror, and they were full scripts. It was only when I couldn't keep all these guys busy that I started. And I didn't mind doing full scripts, because, again, I never had to rewrite. I mean, I'd write a few words, and I'd say, did I think of that? That's brilliant, you know? So I kept myself interested by admiring everything I was writing. I don't know, I may regret being dishonest when I think of it.
You still go back and read them?
Shit, sorry about that.
No, I
knew it was going to happen sooner or later.
Now when I read the stuff, I do figure, gee, you know, I could have maybe done this a little better, you know. It's hard to believe that my story's good, but
Stan, when you created, the Marvel Universe, it was a lot of a reflection to the one-dimensional characters you saw at that time with Superman, Batman, and some of those characters, and the kind of humanity you wanted to bring to Spider-Man and some of those characters. And, Grant, you're writing Superman and Batman today. So, I thought it would be interesting to kind of touch upon what you thought of those characters back then. And, Grant, how you have tried to obviously modernize those characters in a way that they have so many more multiple dimensions.
Take out that dimension that Stan put in. So the second dimension that Stan added up kind of reduced what I put first.
I don't think I'm happy with the turn this thing has taken. All of a sudden, he's putting in additional dimensions, and he's bringing them up to date, and he's modernizing them. And so I had those one-dimensional, old-fashioned things that I was struggling with, and it took Morrison to come along and bring them up to date. No, actually, I get it.
What we're saying here, Stan, is that you added the dimension. You were the man who added that extra dimension, that little bit extra to the
I think I'm starting to like you.
In fact, God, you were so handsome there that I think of it.
Oh, I missed that. I need another one of these.
That's handsome.
No, I would rather be considered a writer than an idol, of good looks and charm. That's an everyday thing, But seriously, okay, I didn't come up with all of them, One of my lasting regrets is I didn't create Wolverine. How I let that get away from me, I'll never know. But after I did whatever it was I did, seriously, guys like this, they have taken these characters and these story plots and whatever, and they have made them so much richer. And I mean, I'm the luckiest guy in the world, because all these new writers, and especially guys like Grant, are making me look good. People read their stories, they don't remember, and they say, boy, if Stan came up with this stuff, he must be great, and they're reading his story, and I'm getting a lot of credit, and I don't mind.
What did you think of the old Superman and Batmans when you started Marvel? Obviously, you were trying to do something very different.
Superman, I have to say I admire that, because that was the first one. Superman started all of this. So you can't take anything away from Superman. But I always felt that it was a little one-dimensional. I didn't know much about, I always forgot his name, Clark Kent's life. He was a guy, as far as I knew, his biggest problem was that he was hoping that Lois Lane wouldn't learn that he was Superman. But I didn't know anything else about him. And with Batman, in the early days of Batman, they were really, to me, like detective stories. Everything would hinge on the fact that somebody remembered a cigarette had been in an ashtray, and therefore the Joker must have been there. And I'm no good at clues and details. I just like to have people talk and make fools of themselves. And I wanted to write stuff where the super quality of the character was important, but I wanted to know, who is the character? What's the guy like when he isn't being a super character? What does he worry about? What are his problems? What's his love life like? I couldn't get too deep into that, of course. And so I tried to just flesh out the characters, and I guess that was the biggest difference. The other thing that I loved doing was having them meet in different books, unexpected. There was one I loved. I don't know if you remember this. I think it was the Fantastic Four. They were in a ball game or something, and at the Yankee Stadium, and there were a lot of press photographers. So I guess it was Jack Kirby, I told him to draw Peter Parker in the background with a camera, you know, with the press photographer. And we made no mention of it. He was just in the panel. And we got about 1 million letters saying, "We saw Peter Parker at the game. That's terrific." And it made it seem as if these are real characters who live in the same world, and occasionally they get together. And that was something I got a big kick out of. And boy, how do you follow that? I'm sorry. I absolutely ruined the panel by saying that. There's no way you can go from there. You've been a great audience. Thank you.
I think the things that make comic books unique now are actually those same two things that you made up. People are still using that stuff, the character stuff, and the shared universe, and you understand that. So nobody's really gone far beyond that.
Oh, you have, because I've seen some of this guy's stuff, and it's brilliant. And you're not sticking just to superheroes. You're not sticking just to guys in cuts. And what you're doing for Virgin, I'm a little bit annoyed because now I've got to come up with something that's as good or better, and that's not going to be easy. But just wait. You'll see who's really the guy. Just give it another few months. It's fun when you compete, you know? I wish I didn't have to compete with somebody as good as him.
We'll have a follow-up panel for that debate 1 year from now, right?
If this doesn't make them buy the Virgin books, I don't know what else. You should give us some reward for being up there.
What are you doing?
I'm not allowed to say. No, don't kill me. I'm doing something that's very new, very different. It's probably so different that nobody will understand it, including me. But you'll see in another few months there'll be an announcement. And keep watching the Virgin website. You must have a website and Virgin News, and keep Virgin evermore in your mind.
Think of Virgin, yes.
He'll pay my cab ride back home after that. Let me tell you.
So, you know, speaking of, obviously, how Grant has taken some of your characters, one of the most prolific runs you've ever done was also on X-Men, you know, which I'd love for you guys to comment on why you think properties like that have existed for generations, always spoke to that generation very timely, and, you know, how much of Stan's work was influencing you as you were taking that on, Grant?
I went right back to the originals and read the first ones that he did. And to me, the X-Men became about, it was actually adults versus children. Because I felt the whole thrust of the X-Men was actually about the generational thing, that people dislike their children because the children come up with new ideas, new clothes, new ways of looking at things, and adults kind of don't like that because it's threatening to them. So I saw the X-Men as being about that, and basically that's where we took it. in that direction. Basically about the war between adults and youth. I don't know.
Don't look at me.
I'm looking at you.
You got yourself into that.
I'm looking at you for validation, Stan. That's all I want.
You see, this is part of this man's genius. He sees things that aren't even there. I didn't think of that, and it's brilliant. I wish I had thought of that. I really thought of it as good versus evil, and the idea of prejudice and bigotry and not liking people and fearing people because they're different. And I'm very serious when I say this. I had not heard it before, but that's a hell of a good idea. And I wish I had thought to inject the idea of young people and old people who don't see things alike, and it's hard for them to get on the same wavelength. And that's why he's so good. It didn't occur to me. And I wish you wouldn't show me up here either.
It's all in there already. So even if you didn't think about it, you planted it.
That's how good I was. I was writing things I didn't know.
So, Graham, what is your favorite Stan Lee story, if you had to think of the one that maybe has influenced you the most?
Am I the point of all this?
This Man, This Monster, which I read when I was a little kid and really freaked me out. This Man, This Monster, the SS quote.
Oh, I like that one. Yeah. I love the title, This Man, This Monster. I made up all those titles, by the way. They were great. Sometimes we do a story based on a title. I would think of a name, and I'd say to Jack, let's do a story about this. It's a great name. You know, and he'd mutter behind a cigar, you know.
So where did that one come from? Where did that one come from, This Man?
I don't know. I wanted to get something that, I wanted to play up the thing, and I wanted to play him up and show him in a different way. The Thing was really my favorite character in the Fantastic Four. And when Michael Chiklis played the role in the movies, we couldn't have been luckier. He was so perfect as the Thing. And so anyway, that's it. I liked the title, and I wanted the Thing. And I wish I remembered more about the story.
Well, you know, just to kind of close off before we open it up to the audience.
We're going to be so vulnerable.
Just for a few minutes, then. But one of the things on the surface is your writing styles obviously seem very different. But when you really read,
Excuse me 1 minute. I have been saying what a great writer this guy is, and now you're saying we're so different.
styles may be different, but obviously, one of the things I found when I was rereading also some of your work, the Silver Surfer parable, the one you did with Mobius, which I think was, dealing with a lot of deeper themes of philosophy, religion, spirituality, and obviously all of your work, Grant, has tried to touch upon a lot of deeper themes. I mean, how much do you guys read, and how much did you take in to kind of put out these comics outside the world of comics?
You go.
I just read tons and tons of Stan Lee comics. That's where all the good ideas come from.
I hate it when he says nice things like
Yeah,
that.
see, that's how to beat him. Say nice things. You can't handle it when you say nice things.
I'm not used to it. Nobody's ever nice. That's your answer? Now I have to go?
I read loads of stuff. I like that.
Well, I read a lot of stuff. I wasn't reading his stuff then because he wasn't even born when I was writing these things. But I read everything, I was a big, voracious reader. And usually, subconsciously, whatever you read sticks to you. What was the question?
How much was it a conscious effort to introduce all that philosophy and all those kind of...
I love philosophy. Yeah, there's a problem when you write comic books, or maybe when you write anything. People don't like to be preached to. And I love to preach. So it had to be done very subtly. and there were only a few characters that I could use to do any little bit of preaching. The Silver Surfer, first and foremost. I did a little with Thor, and sometimes with Spider-Man and the other characters. I try to sneak some little thoughts in subliminally, but that wasn't always the big thing. Mainly, in writing a comic book, especially in those days, you just hoped you'd write something people would read and it would sell and you wouldn't be fired, you'd keep your job and pay the rent. So I wasn't thinking that much about philosophy, but when you know, Grant, when you're writing dialogue and people are talking, somehow your own thoughts get in there and you can't stop it. And the Silver Surfer, I mean, gee, I'd have him commenting about the human race and what idiots we were and we didn't appreciate this great planet we live on and why do we hate each other and blah, 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 blah. And that's probably why the book didn't sell so well.
Well, let's open it up to some questions from the audience right now. And, I'm just going to call on people who've asked questions. Is there a mic set up for that? I think there's a mic over there in the center. So, I'm also going to repeat the question just once after people say it, so we make sure that everyone hears it properly.
Yeah. What if you even look like like you can shape or something?
Let's go ahead. Do you have a question?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, hi. My name is Michelle. I'm a representative for Incredible.com, and I'm a huge fan, so it's an honor to be here. In Incredible Hulk, at the end, we saw Tony Stark. We saw Iron Man. So does that allude to maybe a third movie with them teaming up for Iron Man being Hulk or Hulk being Iron Man? Where that's going?
We have a comic book called The Avengers. Now, your guess is as good as mine, but it might be an educated guess. That's really all I'm at liberty to say, or they'll shoot me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Josh. I'm honored to be here. My question is, how can I get into the industry as a storyteller?
Be on welfare for 9 years. So it's quite difficult. You've got to just keep pressurising people. You need a little bit of talent, you need a bit of persistence, and you need some luck. And you can get by on 2 of those things, and you can't get by without 2 of them. So no, it's quite difficult right now, but we do need a new generation of writers coming in. We desperately need people. So all I can suggest is that you keep writing our stuff. Take it to editors. If they don't write back to you, keep bugging them, keep annoying them. Eventually, if they stop writing back to you completely, it's because they don't like you. So you just have to deal with that. But if you're any good and you're persistent, there's a really good chance you might make it. But it's hard going, man. It's like, you just got to knuckle down and do the work. Well, thank you. Hope you do well.
Might not hurt if you're well dressed also.
Hi, big fan of both of you. Grant, I was wondering, out of all of Stan Lee's characters that you haven't had a chance to write, which one would you most want to do?
Good. Iron Man or the Hulk, maybe? Spider-Man's the one I don't think I could ever do. Spider-Man at all. Too specific.
I'd be glad to audition you.
Okay, well, I'll see you later. I know what he means when he uses the word audition.
I was hoping to you could talk about the thought process of developing new characters and what goes into that, like if you have to think of their powers, what they're going to have, or maybe even their gender or ethnicity, something like that. Thanks.
And those are the new characters.
I really don't know. I think sometimes you could start with a superpower and you figure, boy, that's something that hasn't been done before. I'll build a story around it. I think there are very few superpowers left, actually. Or you can just think of a character that you like and say, how can I make a superhero out of them? Or, in my case, seriously, I used to sometimes just think of a title. And I thought, gee, this is just such a great title. I bet I could make a story around. In fact, I'm working on a movie outline now. And frankly, the whole thing is based on the title I thought of. So, I don't think... Do you think there are any rules? I think it's just whatever you think of.
Like characters just can come out, or you read something in the newspaper, or you hear a record, and gives you an idea for something.
You never know where the idea for a story will come from, really, and it's usually different sources. Boy, it's about the most serious I've been in quite a while. See how dull it can be when you get serious?
Next question.
This question's from Stan. Your modesty, by the way, is totally refreshing.
I'm known for that, actually.
I know that. But it's on every interview I've ever seen. But every interview I have seen also has said all the things that you love. Grant told you what he loves, and you always love what you love. What have you regretted, or storyline or character have you regretted creating in the past?
Well, you're going to think me very immodest. I haven't... Oh, wait, there's one thing I regretted. Jack Kirby and I were doing a Fantastic Four. We were supposed to do one, and the book was due very shortly, and I didn't have an idea. You can't do a book without an idea. You may have read some books and figured, oh, you can do them without ideas. Anyway, I needed something, and I thought of a name, Diablo. And I said, man, what a great name for a villain. Diablo. You can't get a more villainous, evil name than that. And by the time I...
You would be so funny. Yeah! Right on!
Told you, I shouldn't have been here. So anyway, by the time I finished saying the word Diablo, Jack had already drawn him, and he drew a real evil-looking guy. And I said, oh, we're home free. But then it occurred to me we didn't have a story. Now, the book had to go to the printer very shortly, and we came up with some story. To this day, I don't remember what it was, but I thought it was terrible. I don't even remember it, but it was printed, it went out there, and I've always regretted the fact that I cheated in a sense, because I just did the story because I liked the name and the story wasn't that great. I'm hoping somebody here in the audience will say, oh no, I read that, it was wonderful, but I very rarely hear that about Diablo. And that was my one regret.
So we've just got time for 2 more questions, but go ahead.
Hello. The concept of your minds joining to create a universe is very exciting, I'm sure, to many, and I'm wondering if you could give us maybe a live sample of doing that and create a character that will become iconic for us right this moment.
I would like to learn how he does that also.
This has to be the two of us. Let's create a character. It would be ideal.
Well, if it has to be the two of us, wait a minute. All right, go ahead. Can you hear me? Oh, I can hear you. It's the understanding thing. Can you all understand what the hell he's doing?
Most people don't even understand what I'm writing. Never mind. What would be a good superhero for now? We need something different for now. A 21st century character.
You mean you want the character to be in the 21st century?
No, it has to be new. It has to be something that speaks to the audience.
Well, the animation that I just saw, that's not 21st century.
No, that's something different. But these guys want us to make up a superhero right now on stage.
Are they going to tell us what we have to do?
He just said, make up a superhero. hero
He wants to
he
make
challenged
us
us.
hero now. Well, go ahead, make it up. You're wearing the suit.
See after Auckland. So you don't want to make up suit? I think if we make up suit, they need to pay us for it.
You know, there may be competitors in the audience. Do you really want to give them that many tips?
No, I think that we can't do anything like that.
One of the things we're trying to do, obviously, is pair Stan with some of the greatest talents as he creates the new superhero universe with us at Virgin. And I know I would love to see Grant working with Stan on a project. I don't know about you in the audience, but I think that would be...
Would you work on one with me? Remember, you heard it here. We'll work on one together. And I'll do what I usually do. He'll do most of the work, I'll take the credit. All I need is a translator, and we're off and running.
So one last question from the audience.
Yes, one question for Stan. Stan, you've been creating characters, writing since day one, from the very beginning, for a very long time. I was wondering if you ever thought about maybe passing the torch, maybe to the newbies, to the new young writers out there, and say, you know what, I'm done. You know, maybe buy a little island off the Bahamas or something like that.
Well, I want to thank you for putting it politely. What most people say is, when the hell are you going to quit? I don't know how to answer that. I'm really having too much fun. And I don't think I'm stopping new writers from coming along. I mean, look at this new writer. I did all I could to block him, but it didn't work.
It's easy to push back.